As the current Formula One season draws to a close, everyone's eyes are back on Sebastian Vettel. The German might not have won the championship in a couple of years, but he's still one of the most loved guys in the sport, and sadly, it's his last season with it. In today's video, we're looking at some of the things he's leaving fans with, plus the latest on this F1 season. First off, here's a strong opinion from Seb. Pretty much every F1 fan you ask will have a different opinion about the best driver of all time. Some will stick with the legend Ayrton Senna, while a lot more of the older fans will say Michael Schumacher, since he's the best known outside the game. Plus, most fans who don't think it's Schumacher or Senna will say Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion with Mercedes. For the longest time, it's made sense that Vettel's own favorite was Schumacher. After all, they're both Germans, and Seb's always looked up to Michael as an idol of his. On top of that, the two were close when Michael made his return to F1 back in 2010, but recently in a fan video, it looks like his opinion may have changed. His top pick was always the fellow German, but in the video, he was asked about the 5-time champion Juan Manuel Fangio. Fangio was pretty insane himself, having won all of his titles back in the 50s. Out of 54 races, he won a whopping 24 of them, and it makes sense that Seb idolizes him just as much. When asked about him, he replied saying that he'd always been a Schumacher fan, but Fangio was better. In fact, he went on to call him the best and the king. And if fans had any doubts about how well Vettel knows the game, here's your reminder that the driver can name every single Formula One champion in history in perfect order, so he clearly knows his stuff. Fangio might not be a name that comes up too often, but he deserves his spot at the top. Next up, he's always going to defend Michael. Sebastian's love for Michael Schumacher has never been a secret, and he's been openly and proudly telling the world how much he admires and respects him since the start of his F1 career. In fact, he's taken his side over literally any other driver. So let's throw it back to the last time he did that. Back at the end of the 2021 F1 season, the grid was getting geared up to race in Abu Dhabi, and the race was going to decide the world champion for the year. Now at this point, Lewis Hamilton was tied for the most championship wins with Schumacher at 7, and it looked like he was pretty close to breaking that record. But Max Verstappen had also been having the season of his life, and most bets were on him to win. Ahead of Abu Dhabi, Sebastian was asked about Hamilton's chances of breaking Schumacher's record, since it looked like he was going for the 8th win. Seb openly replied, saying that Michael was his hero and that deep down he didn't want Lewis to win. But before anyone could attack him for it, he went on to say that both Lewis and Max had very strong seasons, and either one of them deserved the championship. He added that even if Lewis won, Michael would still be the greatest to him, and even if he won 5 more championships, it wouldn't change that. He made it clear that he gets along great with Lewis, which we've seen through his support for all the causes Lewis stands for. Moving on, this is Seb's biggest competition. It's no secret that Vettel is one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time. Apart from being a 4-time world champion, he's been one of the most consistent drivers in the sport, and through 15 years of his career, he's made sure to always be in the battle for pole positions and wins. But the last couple of seasons at Aston Martin have been tough for him, and while it was sad for fans to hear, he decided to end his career with the 2022 season. But the real question is, who did he consider his biggest competition these past 15 years? When the driver was at Ferrari from 2015 to 2020, it was pretty clear who it was. After all, he and Lewis would always be fighting for poles and wins, and in 2017, they both battled it out for the championship all year long, with it eventually going to Lewis. And Seb totally agrees with that, as he stated in an interview for Aston Martin's website. When asked about his toughest F1 rival, he responded that it was definitely Lewis, especially during the Ferrari days. He said the British driver has always been right up there, and we saw plenty of tight battles on the track between the two. He also added that before Lewis came onto the scene, his fiercest rival was definitely Fernando Alonso, specifically when he was at Ferrari. In a full circle moment, Alonso will be taking over Seb's seat at Aston Martin as he leaves the team and will be driving alongside Lance Stroll in the 2023 season. Plus, this is what he thinks of the new champion. After a roller coaster 2022 season, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, Max Verstappen is the world champion, and what's more, he's actually broken one of Seb's records already. But if you think the fellow German is upset about it, then you don't know Sebastian Vettel at all. He's one of the nicest guys on the grid, and he knows that records were made to be broken. This season, Max broke his record for most wins in a season by winning 14 of them, and Seb openly offered his congratulations to the driver. In a classic Seb humor moment, he added that Max could win the remaining 2 races and go for 16, because anything else would be a disappointment. If there's one thing we can count on him for, it's the clever jokes. It's really not surprising that Red Bull and Verstappen won the Drivers' Championship this year. The car they made has been pretty amazing, even though it gave them a ton of problems at the start of the season. We all remember how Max had to retire from 2 of the first 3 races, giving hope to Ferrari fans that Charles Leclerc would bring back the crown. Even Sebastian mentioned how great the car was, saying that even though it was the heaviest on the track this year, they still managed to win the most races and the championship. He also said that they managed to remove most of the weight from the car, and he praised Max for doing a great job too. Another thing to remember is that the record that Max broke was shared by Vettel and Schumacher, which makes it an even bigger deal that the driver is so chill about losing it to Max. Let's talk about if Seb could be coming back one day. The driver has been pretty clear about the end of his career. He's had a legendary run, and now he wants to give more time to his family and his other interests, and he doesn't want to have to split his attention and energy. But that retirement probably looked a bit worse to him ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix this year, since it's a well-known fact that Suzuka is one of Vettel's favorite circuits. After all, he's had 5 poles and 4 wins on the track, and his second championship win happened there in 2011. Clearly, he's got plenty of emotional attachment to it, so when he was asked about it before the GP, he had plenty of good things to say. The 35-year-old said he had always loved the track, and it's definitely his favorite. He went on to talk about the corners, the first sector, and the atmosphere, going so far as to call the track iconic. In a typical sweet Seb way, he added that maybe one day, if a driver gets sick, he wouldn't mind jumping on for another race around Suzuka. Of course, he also added that he doesn't actually want anyone to get sick, but he did say never, so until then, fingers crossed. Finally, this driver isn't so different from Seb. Daniel Ricciardo is also exiting the grid this year, but for a very different reason than Seb. After some of the biggest F1 drama in years, McLaren ended his contract a year early, and he doesn't have anything lined up for next year. As his season came to an end, he put in some good performances, even winning Driver of the Day in Mexico City. He compared the end of his journey to Sebastian's, saying that both of them were putting in great performances toward the end of their careers, and people were questioning the fact that they were leaving. He explained that he can still do it, but he lacks the kind of consistency that all F1 drivers need. He's still hopeful, saying that he loves it, and he wants to get back into it as soon as he can. That's a wrap for this video. Who's your pick for the greatest F1 driver? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya in the next one.